Hey guys, this is Kendall and Justin. We are here once again talking boots. I wanted to talk today about kind of mid to late season. Our first discussion, which you can also check out on our YouTube channel, we talked a lot about lightweight, more summer through early bow hunting season and even into what we consider elk season, which is months of September.
Yeah.
We talked about all the boots in our lineup that are non-insulated. I don't think we didn't have a single boot that was insulated.
Nothing was insulated.
So we're going to switch gears a little bit today. Justin and I are going to have a conversation, and hopefully you can follow along. We can look at each boot that Justin and I would either utilize in kind of mid to late season, as well as a couple models that would cross over well, and then also talk about why we recommend each one of these boots, some of the scenarios. Justin, as you're looking at this lineup for what we would consider kind of late September through October, November into the late rifle seasons, talk to us a little bit about a couple of these two that are uninsulated, and then the option that guys have in the Nevada and the Guide that are non-insulated that some guys will use in the bow hunting season.
Absolutely.
So let's start here on the end.
So yeah, it's kind of your one boot quiver. First we'll start with the Idaho here. Great option for guys that are hunting primarily, early season archery. But maybe they got a rifle tag this year and they're going to stretch a little later, or maybe you're going to Montana, northern Idaho, Wyoming, or something, and concerned a little bit about the cold. But I think you're going to be able to stretch a boot like that, especially you change your sock game a little bit, so it can do a world of difference.
When you're talking to guys, you mentioned sock game. When you're talking to guys that are looking and they want one boot to cover everything, and I've kind of, maybe this is a loaded question, they're more of like an archery season guy that might dip into rifle season, or they live in like Idaho or Montana where they can swap and they use one tag, or Wyoming, one tag that jump over into both seasons. Why the Idaho? Is it
I'd say
because it does breathe quite well.
It does breathe really well.
But going into like late season, what type of guy would want to utilize that boot going to late season? You talked about the sock, changing your sock game.
Sock's going to help a lot. Going from lightweight, midweight, maybe to heavyweight. Nice thing about the Idaho is it's going to have that wider toe box, so it really allows for that little extra bit of insulation added by the sock.
Okay.
So that part alone is nice. Really, that Idaho is going to really hit the bill for guys that have hot feet. Naturally run warm. Because where a lot of guys get cold is they overheat, sweat, get to the top, glass, and then their toes freeze.
It's not so much the breathability of the boot.
It's the moisture from the insulation.
Absolutely.
So that's a big one. The other thing too is guys, around this Utah, even kind of more south, this boot's going to be great for them for majority of the time, but then it's also going to give you the 10-inch ability, to stretch it a little longer in the season. So
I would mention, like 3 years ago, I used the Wyoming for my boot like all year, like all summer, all fall, archery season, Colorado, Idaho, and then I even used it. I remember using it on December 31st, New Year's Eve, chukar hunting here in Utah, and there was snow on the ground. And even though I was hiking a bunch, I changed my sock game. Obviously, the Wyoming's the little brother to the Idaho.
Absolutely.
And I remember sitting down and having lunch with my dog, and I remember after about an hour, my feet did get a little chilled. But
get a little nippy.
With moving around, that boot in a good sock system is going to, the right kind of guy can use that pretty much the entire year.
I think too, you've got this, you've got a suede over the tongue or over the toe here. So I think that gives actually a little bit of that insulating factor that the Cordura is not going to have.
That's right.
That's going to actually give you a little bit of help a little bit in that cold.
I never even thought about that. That's actually a good point, good feature to point out to guys.
I think it helps a lot.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
And then we stretch into our Dakota here, which is I'd say our hybrid, a little bit of hybrid of the Nevada.
We got called out by a guy on our last video. Not called out, but
we left it out.
It is a non-insulated boot, and I think because it's all leather, sometimes we equate it with going into the kind of mid-season. But we do have a lot of guys that use that in the earlier season. Why is it in this lineup today, other than the fact that we might have forgotten it last
absolutely.
time?
So it's going to be a phenomenal boot for early season as well, simply because it's not a full leather. So it's got the Cordura tongue, some of the Cordura uppers. So you're going to allow that moisture and heat to escape a lot better than, say, a full leather.
Sure.
But where this really kind of falls into this category is that leather is going to stretch you later in the season because it is a naturally insulating factor. So you get best of both worlds. Not going to retain heat quite as well as, say, like a non-insulated Nevada will.
Right.
But it's still going to be nice and burly and also give you great protection for guys that, say, are in the Southwest or maybe like Eastern Wyoming, Eastern Montana, deal with cactus, anything like that. It's going to protect you a lot. So.
I've talked to a number of guys up in northern Idaho even and branching over into Washington, Oregon that like this boot because it does dump a lot of heat because of that Cordura on the tongue.
Yep.
It's got the ABSS, which is the ankle bone support system, and rather than a rubber rand, it's got this PU coated triple stitched leather rand, which is extremely durable, and it allows it to come up over the toe cap. You can kind of see that there. So it's a cool boot. Definitely, I would say on a smidge narrower than like our Nevada. Not a narrow boot per se. That's my opinion. Having a foot that's just slightly wider than normal. But a lot of guys are starting to really find that boot and realize its benefit. And mid-season, even into late season, if your feet run a little warm, you don't want the 10-inch height of the Idaho.
Absolutely.
Dakota is a good option.
Yeah, like I said, I mean, for someone to start in early season, I mean, that like southeastern or just eastern part of Montana, Wyoming, and then stretching into latter part to where, some of the northern guys, they hit September, and it's fair game for snow. So
for sure.
To have that is kind of a nice benefit. So it's a good aspect. One thing to note is the majority of I think almost all of our insulated boots have ABSS in it. Trying to think now.
Yeah,
it's a tough question.
They do, actually.
So once you've got go into that insulated realm, you're really you don't have to worry about the ankle support, action there. So which I think helps a lot, especially in snow travel and anything like that.
One thing to note as you brought that up about our insulation, I get this question a lot, and I'm sure you do too. Starting here with the Gran Paradiso, which is the women's boot in the leather, and stretching through the Briksdal, the Nevada Guide, Hunter, and then the Wild Rock. The outside of the Wild Rock, these boots right here, the insulation is a 200-gram equivalent. Now, most boot makers are using Thinsulate. We don't do that.
Yep.
A lot of it has to do with the application of the Thinsulate to the Gore membrane.
Yep.
Whether you're using a Gore-Tex membrane or another waterproof breathable membrane, when you use Thinsulate, what happens primarily is, this is the way I explain it, is that it's just like you have to use a layer of glue to adhere over the entire area of the Thinsulate. Thinsulate's actually pretty fragile, as some insulation can be. And so when you adhere that to the Gore membrane, you have to have a glue that adheres the entire piece. What happens then is you create essentially a second non-breathable waterproof membrane that will keep you dry from outside.
But it's going to keep the moisture in.
Exactly, it'll keep that moisture in. So by utilizing the process that Gore does for us in our European factory and in Europe, they utilize a proprietary method that requires little to no glue to adhere our insulation to the Gore membrane and allows it to breathe. So when we talk, both insulation, we're talking 200 grams equivalent, but the range of use is greater because the breathability is greater. And then
absolutely,
the second thing I tell guys is fit on, we have the Guide in the Nevada here that are insulated, and we also offer the non-insulated version. You will not notice the fit. In fact, I'd probably bet my paycheck that a guy couldn't know the fit if he was trying one or the other.
Absolutely. So that's a big question. Do I need to size up, size down,
absolutely,
or whatnot? But if you put an insulated on your left and non-insulated on your right, you wouldn't know, until you get the performance. So the other nice part about that Gore-Tex is what I had mentioned before about guys getting kind of sweaty feet and then getting cold. That's going to help. So it's going to allow that moisture to escape.
Yeah, absolutely.
But then whenever you you stop the glass, it's going to give you that insulation, and you're not going to have all that moisture sitting on your toes.
And we're not talking a ton of insulation here. I mean, some guys, when they hear the word insulation, they think I always picture the walls of my house and like. Whew.
Oh, absolutely.
This is, it's still meant to be an active mountain hunting boot. This is not, if you're planning to sit in a tree stand, our boots are probably not for you as it gets into late season, and I don't hesitate to say that either. So these are definitely mountain hunting boots. So as we dive into these,
active.
These are active.
They're meant to
boots.
be active,
Sure.
and give you the ability to still be warm, while you're glassing, but still, they don't burn you out whenever you're covering
sure.
a whole bunch of ground and a whole bunch of vert. And I've talked to a lot of guys that ran like the Nevada or the guide before the non was introduced, and so many of them were like, man, I didn't realize that they were that insulated in the first place. So I mean, it tests how well they breathe.
I've had guys say, I thought they were insulated. I thought they were non-insulated already because they breathe so well.
Yeah, absolutely.
But every foot's different. So
definitely,
if your foot runs maybe a little chilly, like this is definitely where you want to hang out. If your feet run a little hot, maybe consider for that mid-season hunt, into your rifle hunts in October and maybe even a late hunt. If you're active, these boots are going to be right up your alley.
Absolutely. I mean, I think the addition of the non-insulated guide kind of rounds off this, group really well.
Sure.
It gives the guy who has, maybe better circulation, feet run warm, to run a non-insulated guide or Nevada. Depending on your preference, 8 or 10 inch. But then also when you get that third season Colorado rifle elk hunt or something like that later season, you're completely confident in the fact that it's going to be waterproof and it's going to be nice insulating factor.
Absolutely.
So.
These two boots right here, we touched a little bit on the Gran Paradiso. In the women's line, it's 200 gram insulation, full leather. It's the beefiest of our women's boots that we offer. Pretty tried and true, and a lot of gals are starting to realize
it's an awesome boot.
Built for a women's foot.
Very similar to Nevada. What they've done is put the EVA foam sole on there, so it's going to lighten that boot up a little bit. In the midsole for the women. So and in general, I've noticed talking to a lot of ladies that their feet tend to run a little bit on the chillier side compared to men's. So a girl can get away with this kind of into the earlier season a little bit more than say a guy could get away with 200 grams. So a lot of girls have been going with this just because it is very universal.
Briksdal, we've talked about these in other videos. Why would you recommend this particular boot for a mid to late season hunt over like Nevada guide hunter?
Absolutely. So first thing is going to be fit. I think both of these boots run a little bit on the trimmer side, a little narrower, a little bit more. And then the other thing too is both of them are going to step up in their stiffness. So first is going to be the Briksdal at a 4 flex, and then we go to the SF, which stands for stiff flex, and that's going to go up to our 5. So I would very much say that this is your quintessential Alaska boot a little bit there. Nasty doll sheep terrain, but it's also for the guy that knows he likes a stiff boot. We get guys that call and say, hey man, the reason I haven't transferred over to Crispi is because I like a super stiff boot and where I hunt warrants it. So this is for them, and I think we've given them the niche, and it's new for this year.
There's places, wilderness areas like the Bob or other places in Montana, northern Idaho, the Cascades in Oregon, even goat hunting, other stuff like that in Colorado. This is really more ideal for that. One of the things I was going to point out, just for anyone that's watching, if you look at the sole on the bottom of these, you can see that the Briksdal is a little more narrow in the middle, and a little, just a hair narrower on the heel. But this, that's where he's talking. We're talking a little bit about the fit is a little more narrow. I think the heel pocket is still very, very accommodating.
Yeah, absolutely. It's very. I think personally, this is one of our more comfortable boots. It just fits me very well. It's kind of what I'm used to in a boot. I like that. It's
worth the look. It's got an extra lace lock at the top. It does have an optional lace loop on the side right here, the fabric one. A lot of guys, this little piece of cordage. I've got some guys asking if they tear out. We've Italy's tested this over and over and over, and they're extremely durable. So in the same height as Nevada, you do get one extra lace loop or lace lock going up the upper.
Yeah, I think.
And then you go down a little bit more on the more mountaineering type.
You
fit.
get that asymmetrical lacing, which is much more akin to kind of your rock climbing and mountaineering shoes. So very customizable in the fit. I do think your toe box area is a little bit snugger than say the Nevada or the Guide, but that is also akin to that style of boot. And I have talked to some guys where it's taken a little bit for them to get used to that. You know, their toes get a little bit claustrophobic, I think you'd say. But I like that. I think it gives me very good control, especially in climbing and nasty descents. You know, both of these boots are meant to be able to handle nasty terrain. Sure. But then you get the Briksdal, which I think is a very universal boot, and can handle everything from your mild elk hunt to, you know, your Dall sheep hunt and mountain goat hunt. So.
One thing I will mention about this boot, if your feet run a little chilly, in the tongue, it's a stretch nylon tongue, and it increases breathability, which is fantastic on high output hunts. But at the same time, like in snow, and if you know you're going to be walking through a lot of snow or crossing a lot of streams during that snow, I mean, A, you're going to stay dry, but B, you do need to consider that you are dumping a lot of heat in that the tongue area. So I've told guys this is a phenomenal boot. If you do know that you're going to be hunting more snow and very, very cold conditions, I would jump over to a full leather tongue of the Nevada, even though there may be a little bit of advantage to the stiffness in real burly terrain. So that's the one thing I will mention as far as, since we're talking, you know, late September, October, November hunts. That's one thing to keep in mind here. As you know, just like the Dakota, that tongue is meant to dump a lot of heat. Yeah,
it is worth noting. I mean, I think, you know, you will be able to combat a little bit of that heat loss with a gator, you know, without extending down. But that being said, it does make it also very versatile, because it's going to breathe super well early season, and then, you know, maybe you do throw a gator on, but it's going to have, you know, that area for it to breathe out. You know, I mean, there's a lot of guys I've talked to that do stream crossings and stuff like that, and they get the cold, wet sensation.
I did.
You're not wet, it's not leaking, but it gives you that kind of little bit of like wader feel almost, to where you're standing in water and it feels like it's wet, but it's not wet.
That's a good analogy to, like, if you're fishing in a cold stream with a wader. Yeah. The next kind of family right here these are really, as I describe to guys, if they're saying, if a guy calls me and says, hey, I'm going to Montana on a rifle elk hunt, I know he's going in October, especially Montana, because their archery season goes into that second week of October. So he's going to be latter October, probably November, almost guaranteed. That guy's going to be finding some snow and cold weather. Wyoming, even here in Utah. That's when I personally make the transition from either Summit or Wyoming into my Nevada is when I move into that rifle season. So for most guys, I really push them right here if I find out they're a rifle hunter, or they primarily hunt later season, or maybe their feet do run to just a smidge cold. And they, you know, they're like, hey, I can only afford one boot. I'm either saying Nevada or I'm going Guide, the 200 gram insulation, and these two boots are really kind of that bread and butter for that category. And then the Hunter adds another inch and a half here on the height, and a little stiffer in the flex.
Yep. So you'll be right around that standard Briksdal stiffness. So
any reason you wouldn't put a guy in these boots for that mid to late season hunting period, if that's what
not really. I mean, I'm the same way. I talk to guys and they're like, hey, I want one boot to do it all, and these two boots are where it's at. You know, I mean, they excel
if they don't have a specialized use.
Exactly, and they excel at a very wide spectrum. Say you're here and here, they're right in the middle. You know, on a super hot day, especially like here in Utah, it's 95 degrees. You're out. You know, you might get a little warm in a boot like this. You know, but at the same point in time, you know, it doesn't take much for that temperature to drop, and then you're completely comfortable and you're safe in that zone.
You get warm in about anything except for flip-flops at 95 degrees.
Exactly. Break the Crocs out.
Absolutely.
But then the same thing goes for, you know, extended till later in the year. You know, that leather is going to give you that insulation. And the best part about both these boots is you've got an option to go insulated and uninsulated based on your personal preference.
And based on how your feet run and what you want to customize it to. So, the Guide and the Nevada are ones that I recommend a lot for that type of hunting.
Yeah, definitely.
The last, we talked a little bit about the Hunter. The last guy over here on the side, it's a boot that we revamped for 2018. It's called the Wild Rock. We took what I think was a kind of an all-purpose, do everything, more of a generalized use sole and midsole combination, and added utilize the same sole midsole that we run on the Briksdal, and made it more of a mountain-worthy boot. Insulation in this one is
400 gram Primaloft.
That's right.
So you're going to bump up. So that you get a little bit more of like a down jacket. You know, it's going to retain heat better. It's going to produce a lot better. Some guys hear 400 grams and they're like, I was really looking for more.
Right.
And that boot's gonna perform better. You know, as you work harder, as you climb farther. That's going to retain more heat.
Tell me what's significant about Primaloft over like any other type of insulation.
So the big thing with Primaloft is you've got air that actually works through that insulation.
Yep.
So that air is actually going to insulate itself and stay warm. As where you've got like our Gore insulation, that mainly is going to retain the natural heat that's already in there. This kind of, like I said, works like that down coat and almost has like a natural heater to it.
That's why Primaloft was built initially as an alternative to down that could get wet and still insulate well.
Yep.
It's extraordinarily light. If you take a piece of Primaloft and put it on your hand, eyes closed, they actually had to do a test like this at Outdoor Retailer Show where I've been piles of times, and you've been as well, and you can't tell which hand, unless you feel it, you can't tell.
You can't tell by
It's
weight.
extremely light, has a lot of air pockets, like you said. It's a very good, high quality, known worldwide as a great insulator, and so we opted to use that in the Wild Rock in the 400 gram equivalent. And I think the conditions I talk to guys about utilizing and or recommending this boot, almost strictly, guys from basically the Dakotas, Wyoming, Montana, Idaho,
absolutely,
Washington, British Columbia,
later season hunts
that are hey, I'm late season hunt, or I know I'm going to be in kind of rugged mountain conditions, and I'm going to encounter snow. This is where I steer guys. Guys, it's got a full grain leather, so that's why the darker color is a little bit different. Full grain leather tends to shed water initially a little bit better than the nubuck, which has a brushing to it. It's
going to beat off, but that being said, it does take some more care. I think that full grain is, you'll get great longevity out of this boot. It's just give it the love and the care it needs. And it'll keep you going. Yeah, the Wild Rock's a cool addition to our line, and one that I think we needed to address and kind of revamp. And we're always working with the factory and working with guys that we have testing the boots, as well as our own experiences, trying to see what we can do to make the late season line, mid season, early season line more attractive for a lot of the guys that are watching this video, as well as guys that we talk to on a daily basis. Yeah, and we love the feedback. And we appreciate the way that we can interact with our customers that way. But absolutely, I will add one thing for that Wild Rock. We get a lot of questions about when are we going to get like a super insulated boot. Sure. And I push a lot of guys to that. There's guys that want 1,000 gram or something of the latter. And I try and tell them like our boots are meant for mountain hunting. They're meant for moving. They're meant for climbing mountains and burning calories where you're going to run hot. And that 400 gram Primaloft, it runs warm. Yeah, it does a very good job, and it's the same thing when guys hear the word insulation, they get a little scared. That 400 grams Primaloft is going to perform much better and a lot higher than, say, a 400 gram Thinsulate would. So, well, man, good discussion. I appreciate that we can take the time and talk about it. Hopefully this has been helpful for any of you watching the video. If you want to see or more information about these boots, we do have videos on each one of these boots, but we wanted this discussion to hopefully be helpful in determining which boot's going to be right for you, depending on what time of year you're hunting, as it pertains to more the middle to latter part of the season. If you have any more questions, Justin and I are definitely available, and others that work here at Crispi. Give us a shout, drop a comment in our YouTube here, or check us out on Facebook or Instagram. But Justin, thanks a ton. Yeah, we'll check you guys soon, and good luck on the mountain.